Hi everybody, it's Thursday. It's the 14th of September on a beautiful golden afternoon. We're all radiant because we've been in the sun and we're all relatively well rested, although it's the second week of term. And today it's what we read on our holidays, whether we were on a beach or by a pool or just sitting in a rainy caravan or tent, what we read. Some of us might have just been revisiting things. I'm going to start with, not me, but Lulu, former member, now getting ready for her. Hello, Lulu. Getting ready to go to Cambridge. I invited her to come back, but she's so worried about transitioning that she's going to stay and watch it. Anyway, she was reading, I couldn't believe this, but anyway, Bridgerton. Cue laughter. Anyway, you got to read rubbish at some time, and as I said to her, what might be fabulous television, if you want Regency romances, the better ones to read are Georgette Heyer, or even, who might it be, written actually in the Regency era? Not your favourite, Mr. Humphreys. Miss Austen.
Oh, Jane Austen.
Yes, Miss Austen. However, she seemed to have had a rollicking good ride, and I was on her historic royal palaces yesterday, and there's only a couple more months before Kew Palace shuts for the summer, and they were doing a big spread about Queen Charlotte, because that was Queen Charlotte's favourite residence with George III. And of course she was a real person as well as being a character in Bridgerton, so nice to see that. Anyway, so Mr. Humphreys, would you like to go ahead? Are you going to come to the chair, or are you going to stay there? You come to the chair.
Yeah, and because
so the other thing is, if we're going to the chair, we everybody moves around, and it's a bit like musical chairs.
Oh, I'll have to negotiate fragrance over here. All right, okay. I read quite a bit over the holidays. Now, I actually forgot to bring 2 books with me, so that's a good start, isn't it? I read a book that Miss Huntley got me, very kindly.
Oh yes, because it's right up your street.
Right up my street. Yeah, she basically thought of all the things I like. It was Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. It's about 20 years old now.
Mr. Sayer first, though, because Mr. Sayer gave it to me. Thank you, Mr. Sayer.
Thank you, Mr. Sayer. So it was published about 20 years ago, and he is a great author. It won the Pulitzer Prize, which is a very prestigious book award, and it is his stab at the great American novel. If you want to know what the great American novel is, essentially it is an attempt. It's been no one's managed it yet. It's an ever-doomed attempt to capture the American zeitgeist, to find the American national experience through the art form of a novel. Examples include something like Moby Dick. That's probably like the first example. The Great Gatsby is another one that people say is the great American novel. Anyway, this is a modern example of it, and it's the reason Miss Huntley gave it to me is because it's for many reasons, not least because comic books feature prominently. So the basic premise: there are two. They're half brothers, aren't they?
Yes,
I think.
Cousins?
Or cousins. Actually, no, sorry, they're cousins. My mistake. Yeah, they're cousins. One, so it's set in pre-World War II New York, and essentially one of them has fled from Nazi-occupied Europe, and he rocks up at the home of this cousin of his, and they band together to create a comic book. And he's called the hero they create. He's called the Escapologist. Inspired by Houdini. You all know Houdini, I'm sure. You know, the famous escapologist. And so it's about that and the stories they create, and it's a bit geeky when it comes to the comic book details. But also, it's sort of like art mirroring life. Now, I don't want to say too much because I'm going to do a Litsoc on this later in the year. But yeah, art mirrors life because obviously one of them, the one who's coming from Nazi-occupied Europe, he is trying to get his parents out of the sticky situation.
Yes.
Czech lands, isn't it? Yeah, the Czech lands. The reason I said Nazi-occupied Europe is because I couldn't remember how it was actually described then. Czech Sudetenland? Oh no, that was annexed before, of course.
Prague. So
okay.
They were known as Czech lands.
Right, we'll say Czech lands.
Yeah.
And there's the myth of the golem comes into play very early on as well, which was one of my favourite passages of the books. Miss Huntley and I were talking about this. The Antarctic gets involved. There's so many things going on. There's a lot more to it than that basic premise.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Probably there's other circumstances, but yes, it's fabulous how it brings it in.
And I love allusions, as you all know from when I've banged on about Neil Gaiman at great length. So, and of course we're going to hear about Neil Gaiman later, aren't we? Yeah. So I really enjoy it. It's an epic, huge novel. It was about 700 pages, but it was brilliant. I I read it in 2 weeks because I couldn't put it down. And then I also read, by contrast, the other book I forgot to bring me was much shorter, and it was called My Phantoms by Gwendolyn Riley, and it's really good. It's about a mother and daughter's very strained relationship, but it's done with a very good sense of humour, and I would say it's just a fantastic two-handed character study. She really does a really good job of describing how you can't choose your family, as the saying goes, and it's kind of like as you get older. I mean, as adults perhaps, so I don't know how we feel about our mothers or our parents, but you move away from home and there's that sense of almost familial obligation, isn't it, to sort of stay, and they have this sort of like ritual where they meet every winter, and there's a bit of underlying resentment there, but it's very funny. So so My Phantoms. Now, as for what I read,
so have you got My Phantoms in the library?
No, that's why I had to bring it from home, and I forgot to bring it from home because that's just how I roll. I forget to do my homework on the first Litsoc. Naughty me. Work warning, Mr. Humphreys.
The Bears, and that was all I could remember. Oh, if you're wondering why the Bears are here, those of you new.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Paddington is Litsoc's mascot, and he's brought his friend Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, and this is, looks like Winnie the Pooh, unlike the Disney one.
Yeah, it's the real deal.
Paddington became our mascot because, obviously, the film, but also because because of the Syrian refugee crisis, basically, and Paddington, of course, is a refugee, an immigrant,
Darkest
like
Peru.
so many people living in Britain, immigrant, and also a thoroughly good bear, as you would agree, I'm sure. Everybody nods.
Kind so.
Everybody nods, Annabelle. Yes.
Yeah, it's compulsory to nod, Annabelle. You can't sit on the fence. Anyway, thanks, Miss Huntley, for making me look bad. Look, I remember the mugs and the cake.
I'm saying I forgot my books too, but I remember the Bears, but only because I thought about them last night.
Whereas I see a lot of you have remembered your books, so you've done better than us. Well done. Now, plenty, but I don't want to talk too much longer because I'm conscious that other people want to get in. I'm not going to talk too long about these. Hannah and I were discussing this earlier. We're going to be doing a Litsoc on Taylor Jenkins Reid at some point. We haven't finalised that yet. Mm-hmm. Now, have you all heard of Taylor Jenkins Reid? Oh yeah, lots of enthusiastic nods. Daisy Jones and Six. Yeah, that's one that's on Amazon Prime. So that's probably the most famous one. Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Yeah, lots of enthusiastic. Okay.
Oh, is it worth watching the Prime?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Without having read the books, I think you can. You get more out of it if you read the book first, I would say.
Oh, okay.
But
right.
There's only so much time.
There's only so many hours in the day.
So if you can, basically make sure you do one of the two.
Okay.
So now she has obviously made a name for, and again, I'm not going to spend too long talking about it because we're doing the Litsoc on it. She's made a name of doing like these sort of like faux celebrity bios, is maybe how to describe it.
Uh-huh.
And the latest one is Carrie Soto's back, and that's about a tennis player, a tennis prodigy, and it's really good. Mm-hmm. But obviously she's fictional, and basically she's coming out of retirement. I think she might be based in Martina Navratilova, if I had to think of. Mm-hmm. Well, partly, maybe she's a composite character. But anyway, she comes out of retirement because a British tennis player of all nationalities, because we know how Great Britain is at tennis, right? Called Nikki Chan comes out of retirement to equal her record. Yeah, well, we got some great players, but Andy Murray, Emma Raducanu, but neither of them are Novak Djokovic or Serena Williams level, as in they got the record. But anyway, in this universe, it's a British player who has challenged her record, and so she's coming out of retirement to get her. And again, it's just, as with all her books, amazing psychological study and staggeringly complex psychological profile. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I read that, and I also read this. And this is her debut. Now, before she made her name writing all these faux celebrity memoirs, she wrote, in my opinion, rather average romantic fiction. And I wasn't too impressed by this. I mean, it was alright, but it wasn't anything special. So it's like, okay, interesting. So I'll talk about it in more detail.
Or did it get published afterwards?
No, this is a debut.
Yeah, but
it got published in this country afterwards. It only came out, this one and various others. Yeah, Daisy Jones was the one that made her name in this country.
Yeah, okay.
And then Seven. I think Evelyn Hugo came before Daisy Jones.
I think it might
but
have done.
In this country, Daisy Jones came first, and then all the rest came after. So
Seven Deaths is the one I couldn't stand.
Seven Husbands.
There's the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and then there's the one which is
7 Deaths of Evelyn.
the 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle.
Oh no, that's the one.
And that
it's so
is.
complicated.
And,
Came in and threw it.
and
Yeah.
who is the author?
Was
That's
It's a man.
Stuart Turton.
Turton, yeah.
Stuart
something like that.
The
That's
titles
right,
are way
yeah.
too similar, and the books are completely different.
And another thing for the uninitiated, when Miss Huntley doesn't like a book, she really doesn't like a book. Yeah, she
You'll know about it.
She won't make any bones about it.
Well, it's that we're getting near to, aren't we? Me doing
Sense of an ending.
Sense of an ending, or the hours you can't get back.
Oh
again.
yeah,
The
which
hours you can't get
that
back.
was Lulu's favourite, which is basically you just like sound off.
You
about a
sound
book
off
you don't
about
like.
what
Read
the
books you
hours
hate.
you've spent reading a book that you hate so much you'd never wish you'd
And you wish you'd
being
have the hours
published.
back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. So I feel like I've taken up too much time, so I'm just going to very quickly mention this one. This was my YA one I read over the summer.
Oh yeah.
Lizzie and Bell mystery. So the latest in there's obviously lots of murder mysteries and
Anybody else
mystery
read
in
these?
general. This
They
is
look
quite
fun.
new, and it's set in Victorian England, and it's got what's his name, Ignatius Sancho. Have you heard of Ignatius
Oh yes,
Sancho?
I've got that
Yes.
waiting on my floor to read.
There we go. And yeah, Patterson Joseph, Miss
Patterson
Rio
Joseph.
mentioned this one to me. But anyway, this is his daughter is one of the main characters, plus a girl called Dido, and so Lizzie works in a tea shop, and Dido lives in a very grand sort of country pile, and they
Dido's a
team
name
up.
to conjure with, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
Dido, who was the foster daughter of the Lord Chancellor.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so it
Anybody
is.
seen the film Belle?
Oh,
Anybody seen the film Belle about Dido? No?
I think I
It's
have.
a
very
lovely
good. I
film. I
haven't,
mean, it's
so-
a bit romanticised, but it is fabulous.
So based on real historical figures, and it's a cracking yarn. It's very entertaining and also very educational. So yeah, definitely one if you like Murder Most and Ladylike or the Peril in Paris series of Catherine Woodfine, then this is the next one to check out. And as you can see, it features main characters too. They're both
Definitely.
of African heritage. So there you go. So that's me.
Thank you.
So
Well done.
thank you. Who would like to
Who would like to come next?
fill the seat, and I'll swap seats with you.
Anybody volunteers? Annabelle?
Okay.
Yes, Annabelle, go on. You know you want to.
No, you can.
Are you all right for time?
I forgot about it. 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I didn't have much memory. Right. Okay, so I read a lot of books over the summer. I didn't have that many with me because most of them are on my Kindle.
That's all right.
I didn't have any with me.
Okay, but can you remember any titles?
Yeah, so I read. Wait, what's it called? I forgot what the book she read. Yeah, but you recommended it. Yeah, but you still.
Yeah, but you still read it, didn't you?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so it's called You've Reached Sam.
Oh, okay.
It's a very good book.
Yes, why?
I mean, I didn't understand the ending when I read it first time, but then I reread it and I understood it.
Good.
But it's about this girl who rings the phone to her dead boyfriend and he picks up.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we've got a ghost story, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes?
No.
Fantasy?
I don't really
It's
know
a
how
dream?
to describe it. No.
Do you want to read us a blurb?
Yeah.
At least he's quite keen
Have
to
you
step
read?
in and help out.
Okay.
So sit down.
Okay, so
Have a seat.
It's a nice big arm. There you go. It's a big armchair.
Excellent.
so it's not a ghost story.
It's not a ghost story.
And he is actually dead, and he's like it doesn't actually explain it in the book how he picks up because like neither of them know. But like I think he knew that she would be able to call him. Like he got the feeling, but he also knows that if she calls and he doesn't pick up, or he calls and she doesn't pick up, then like then they won't be able to call each other again. So it's kind of like
Okay.
yeah.
Does she know he's dead?
Yeah, he died in a
Oh.
car crash, and everyone blames. Loads of people blame her
Her.
because
Right.
because he was at a party and
She called.
she called. Wait, no, he was meant to pick her up, but then he was late, and she was like, "Oh, don't worry." And then he comes back and gets hit by. He was in a car, and then a bus crashes into him, and he dies.
Okay,
And
so it's
loads
very
of people
sad
blame
then,
her.
yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's a romance,
Yeah, a bit. Yeah.
a bit.
Yeah.
It's a mystery, or not?
No.
Kind of.
So is it a telephone call all the way through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, interesting.
And she was she can't tell anyone because otherwise the line will be disconnected. But after a while, because she becomes really distant from all her friends because she can like call him again, she ends up telling her boyfriend's cousin. And then the line kind of fades away.
Ah, right, okay, all right. Because there's an adult book called The Phone Box at the End of the World, and this is an actual story, but it's real. But the book I read was fiction, and in fact, it's set in Japan, and people go to the phone box to talk to people who are no longer with them, and so it's a service about well-being that a particular Shinto shrine had set up, and this came about as part of the earthquake in the terrible tsunami in Japan, and it was an actual thing. This is the story that I read is about two people coming together through this phone box and then making a new life together. So phones are important, aren't they? Yeah, for communication. Yeah, absolutely. And would you recommend it, you two?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I remember. I also read another book.
Yes.
So they both die at the end.
Oh, they both died.
Oh.
So I read that one.
Wow, that's very popular.
And then I read the prequel.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
And then I read the book by the same author.
Great.
Yeah.
Can you remember the name of the author?
Yeah. And then
What was the other one you read about him? What you said you read the prequel? What was the other book you read by him?
Oh.
History is all you left
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else was
He's
it?
very good, isn't he? Do you like
You're
him?
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
then-
something that other people know. Great.
And then I read quite a dark book. So I read 13 minutes. So it was like
Yeah. Go on then.
so
I'm afraid I can't give you 13 minutes to tell us about it, but you've got at least a couple of minutes.
so it was this girl
Yes.
and she was dead for 13 minutes.
Oh right.
Oh, I know the one you
Yeah.
mean. Yeah.
Yeah, because but she knows it was an accident.
Mhm.
And then this dog walker finds her dead in a freezing cold river and then saves her, but she was actually physically dead for 13 minutes. And then it goes through loads of people's different perspectives, and people are trying to figure out who it is, and then there are massive plot twists.
Okay. Great. Okay, so you'd recommend that one?
Yeah.
Yes, but it's quite dark. Does it have a happy ending?
Not
Right,
really.
Not really.
Not
Okay.
spoiler. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, Annabelle. Well, you clearly read a lot this summer.
Yeah,
so
I
good
read
stuff.
more, but I can't remember.
no, I know, but that's fine.
And I
I'm sure
rewrote
it will come
books.
back to you as we go on through the term, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done. Thank you very much.
And thanks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for
Sorry,
the help
it's
together.
not complicated, it's
Yeah.
easy.
Hold on. Josie, do you want to go next? Great.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about Good Omens, but I'm going to talk about something else I read first. I read a book called Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. And-
Cemetery with a C.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it follows the main character Yadriel, who is part of a family, and they part of a Latin American family, and together they all have this ability that they are able to communicate with the dead.
It's a bit of a theme this afternoon.
I know.
It's like summer. This is Halloween stuff. Anyway, never mind.
So Yadriel's cousin dies, and they can't find the body, and it's only a couple of days until the Day of the Dead. But they are trying. So Yadriel is trans. So then is told by other people that he isn't able to be a male magician kind of thing. So, but is determined to try and prove that he is. So he tries to resurrect his cousin. He accidentally resurrects someone from his school by accident.
Oops.
And so he then has to go on a mission to try and
Sort it out.
It sent him to the afterlife and then actually find his cousin. And along the way, more people die, and you have to work out what is going on because someone is killing people with a specific purpose because all the bodies keep disappearing. But as a family, they can all feel.
Right, I was watching a programme a bit like that last night. But yeah, so there's a mystery then.
Yeah.
Is it a bit like Rainbow Rowell? It reminded me of Rainbow Rowell here.
The writing style's quite similar.
Okay. Any humour as well, despite all the darkness.
Yeah, there's.
Yeah.
It reminds me a bit of Coco, the Disney movie.
Yeah, I was just about to say it's Coco,
They
but
go into
darker.
the afterlife, yeah.
So, is it set in Latin America?
No, it's set in America.
Oh, it's set in
But yeah.
America, in the USA.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they got a small community in and around the cemetery.
And is it Hispanic then? Because hence the Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Which is interesting because it's Hispanic Heritage Month. Apparently, I didn't know this,
I didn't
but
know that
I
either.
didn't either.
it's just on Goodreads. So
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we should have a Litsoc on it.
Yeah.
Hispanic fiction.
Yeah.
I don't know.
yep.
I found like the magic and the family
Mhm.
element quite interesting in that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Good Omens. I read other things, but definitely the highlight of my summer.
Excellent.
I just think it's such a fun concept.
It is a
that
fun concept, isn't it?
An angel and a demon band together to stop the end of the world, which is happening in 11 years. It's just, and then they realise they got it a bit wrong, and they have about 7 days to sort it all out. I love the random, like quirky things, like which are part of the book, especially.
It's very Cratchit and Gaiman for that reason,
Yeah.
isn't it? You know, I think about, they thought of something and they think, how can you get this into the story? So, for example, Mayfair and Berkeley Square and we know this, don't we?
Yeah, we
Because
know,
we saw David Tennant
Yeah.
at
Barbican? Was it Barbican we went to?
at the Barbican.
Yeah.
Have we not told you about this?
Oh, sorry. How bad. Yeah, so it was around about the time that it was on TV.
It was just as it was coming.
Pre-COVID, wasn't it?
Oh, it was definitely pre-COVID, yeah.
Yeah.
And basically he did readings from various things that he's
It
written.
was pre-COVID because Amanda was there.
Yeah, his wife
Yes.
at the time.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And she's a singer. She forms the band, and she sang.
Saying,
The Nightingale sang Barbican's
Nightingale
Got
sang
Air,
There Are
which
Angels
you'll
Dining at the
remember from the
Ritz.
end.
yeah.
Yeah, so she sang it live, and Neil Gaiman did loads of readings. And then, as a special surprise, this
Yeah.
was not billed. David Tennant showed up, and did a reading from Good Omens.
Oh, was it
It's fantastic.
the bookshop? Yeah, I've seen that on YouTube.
Azrael's bookshop.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
it's in. I think they used a shop in Soho somewhere, or it might have been Second Shelf. Maybe. Do you know? Did it tell you where it was?
What do you mean?
The bookshop.
The bookshop.
Yeah.
It was set. They built all of.
They built the set,
They
okay,
built a road in
alright.
Soho.
Right. Okay. Josie, do you want to read us a bit?
Yes.
No, you don't have to.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah.
Read the start.
It's optional.
What the very.
The very starting page. I love.
Yeah, why
I
not?
love
I
that
don't think
page.
most people are familiar with the story, so.
Who's seen the series? And of course, it's Good Omens 2 now.
Yeah. which
Yeah,
I
Josie
didn't
and I
see.
have a
I
thing.
do
I'm
as
going to
well.
segue after this.
Oh, good teamwork.
You're
Oh,
Very
good teamwork.
Because
okay.
we both wanted to talk about it, so we had
Oh,
to,
I
we
see.
had to,
So you had
The bit where
discussion.
it's a nice day, or
it
the
was a
theories
nice-
of
it
creation.
was a nice day.
It was a nice day. All the days had been nice. There had been rather more than 7 of them so far, and rain hadn't been invented yet. But clouds massing east of Eden suggested that the first thunderstorm was on its way, and it was going to be a big one.
Pathetic fallacy.
The angel of the eastern gate put his wings over his head to shield himself from the first drops. "I'm sorry," he said politely. "What was it you were saying?" "I said that one went down like a lead balloon," said the serpent. "Oh, yes," said the angel, whose name was Aziraphale. "I think it was a bit of an overreaction, to be honest," said the serpent. "I mean, first offence and everything. I can't see what's so bad about knowing the difference between good and evil anyway." "It must be bad," reasoned Aziraphale, in the slightly concerned tones of one who can't see it either, and is worrying about it. "Otherwise you wouldn't have been involved." They just said, get up there and make some trouble, said the serpent, whose name was Crawley, although he was thinking of changing it now. Crawley, he decided, was not him. Yes, but you're a demon, and I'm not sure if it's actually possible for you to do good, said Aziraphale. It's down to your basic, nature. Nothing personal, you understand. You've got to admit, it's a bit of a pantomime, though, said Crawley. I mean, pointing out the tree and saying, don't touch in big letters. Not very subtle, is it? I mean, why not put it on the top of a high mountain or a long way off? Makes you wonder what he's really planning. Best not to speculate, really, said Aziraphale. You can't second-guess ineffability, I always say. There's right and there's wrong. If you do wrong when you're told to do right, you deserve to be punished. They sat in embarrassed silence, watching the raindrops bruise the first flowers. Eventually, Crawley said, Didn't you have a flaming sword? Said the angel. A guilty expression passed across his face and then came back and cramped there. You did, didn't you? Said Crawley. It flamed like anything. Oh, well, it looked very impressive, I thought. Yes, but, lost it, have you? Oh, no, not exactly, lost more, well... Aziraphale looked wretched. If you must know, he said, a trifle testily, I gave it away. Crawley stared up at him. Well, I had to, said the angel, rubbing his hands distractedly. They look so cold, poor things, and she's expecting already. And what with the vicious animals out there and the storm coming up, I thought, well, where's the harm? So I said, look, if you come back, there's going to be an almighty row, but you might be needing this sword. So here it is, don't bother to thank me, just do everyone a big favour and don't let the sun go down on you here. He gave Crawley a worried grin. That was the best course, wasn't it? I'm not sure it's actually possible for you to do evil, said Crawley sarcastically. Aziraphale didn't notice the tone. Oh, I do hope so, he said. I really do hope so. It's been worrying me all afternoon. They watched the rain for a while. Funny thing is, said Crawley, I keep wondering whether the apple thing wasn't the right thing to do. As well, a demon can get into real trouble doing the right thing. He nudged the angel. Funny if we if we both got it wrong, eh? Funny if I did the good thing and you did the bad one, eh? Not really, said Aziraphale. Crawley looked at the rain. No, he said, sobering up, I suppose not. Slate-back curtains tumbled over Eden. Thunder growled among the hills. The animals, freshly named, cowered from the storm. Far away, in the dripping woods, something bright and fiery flickered among the trees. It was going to be a dark and stormy night.
Well worth reading, isn't it? Yeah. So did you read that and did you watch the series again or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I've watched the first series of series twice,
Mm-hmm.
and I have almost finished season 2, but I can't quite bring myself to watch
Yeah,
the
finish
final
it.
episode of season
Oh.
2. So,
Yeah. Well, lovely. That's excellent. And it's all on. Is it still on iPlayer?
it's on Amazon.
Amazon
Yeah,
Prime.
it was on iPlayer for a while,
It was
the
on
first
iPlayer.
series, so
Yeah.
maybe later
Backing
iPlayer.
forward. Yeah. Okay. With the ineffable Michael Sheen and David Tennant, amongst others. And John Hamm, I seem to remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
On the
Angel
ineffable
Gabriel.
side. Yes. Yeah. Gabriel. Thank you. Right, Marianne. Go ahead.
R2.
We're gonna switch music.
Right.
So, I'm going to segue on from that and talk about season 2 that came out this summer. I binge watched it in a day, I have to say. It was incredible. Now, what I found really interesting was it had a very different feel than the first season.
Did it?
The first
Oh.
season was very... Well, I mean, Terry Pratchett is now no longer with us, sadly. So it kind of missed that...
Quirkiness?
that quirkiness. Like in the first series, there was the narration of God and the whole poker table thing that was going on there, and the whole order of satanic nuns, and it was all just very, very, very silly. But and also epic and incredible, and I loved it. But in this series, it was very much focused on Aziraphale and Crowley, and their relationship and what everything that was going on with them, and how they were now navigating their lives, having been sort of removed from their head offices, which I think was really interesting because, like, as you read, it's such an integral part of their identity. So as you remove that from them, how do they
redundant, basically.
how do they cope?
They're out of a job.
They're out of the job, exactly.
Okay, fair enough, yeah.
And so the basic plot line is John Hamm as Gabriel, who in the previous series had been this absolute tyrant. He'd gone and told Aziraphale that he should just shut up and die, genuine quote. And he was just a general horrible person and no one liked him. He turns up naked at Aziraphale's bookshop.
With a single cardboard box.
With a single cardboard box. That
Hang on a minute, I thought the bookshop had burnt down.
Oh, the bookshop came back to life after because at the end, the bookshop came back to life.
Yes, absolutely.
because at the end of the season, everything got set back, but slightly differently. So it was all wonderful. Lovely way to get the bookshop back. And John Hamm turns up naked with a single cardboard box that is empty, having lost all his memories as Gabriel. And Aziraphale and Crowley obviously very shocked by this because he was so evil.
Which is ironic considering he's Gabriel rather than Lucifer.
And they go on this whole mystery to whole search to find out what's going on with their head offices, what's going on in the Up. But interesting you should mention that as Gabriel, because one of the really interesting things about Good Omens, I think, is that, I mean, especially Crowley, his whole thing is the Earth is still going to be just as dead at the end of it all as if heaven or hell kill it. Like, they are, especially
or
because
even humanity,
or humanity even. Well, I mean, the whole thing's based around the final end game in Armageddon, and they're trying to get back to Armageddon, and it's a lovely plot. Michael Sheen and David Tennant are incredible. I loved it. It was so good, and absolutely recommend it to anyone. It was. Neil Gaiman described it as quiet, gentle, and romantic.
Did he now?
Sound like it.
It was for the first 5 episodes.
And episode 6.
Do we have do the characters? What about the characters from Good Omens? Do we see the Witchfinder?
We do not, sadly, but there are added new people.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
That are humans as well.
Right.
Little subplot, if people don't mind gentle spoilers.
Yeah, go for it.
Gentle spoilers,
Go for
okay.
Not
There's-
sure what Amazon might think, but that's up to them. Yeah,
Don't like Amazon, they're not paying their writers.
true.
Which is why we still haven't got confirmed season 3.
Mm-hmm.
So there is 2 shop owners. One of them owns a coffee shop called Give Me Coffee or Give Me Death, and one of them owns a record shop, and is the sweetest person alive. And Crowley and Aziraphale go about trying to get them to fall in love to cover up a miracle because they miracled, as it's called. They basically magicked.
Yes.
A kind of don't notice me field around Gabriel, so no one would see that they were hiding him,
right, okay.
and they wouldn't get in trouble.
Yes.
And then they tell their respective head offices that their miracles were to make these 2 fall in love. So they go about in the series trying to make them fall in love in various different ways.
Including trying to get them going under the awning in the rain, as Crowley seems to believe that 2 people will always fall in love if you put them under an awning when it's
Which
raining.
is also interesting because he does that with Aziraphale. Just saying. And he also throws a cotillion ball, like in Aziraphale, in Jane Austen, because he's like, everyone falls in love. Yeah, it's an incredible series. It's utterly hilarious, and I cried so much.
Oh, okay.
Um,
that sounds good. And what, you've got something on your lap that you want to tell us that you read?
The Illustrated Man
Yes.
by Ray Bradbury. I love Ray Bradbury. I read Fahrenheit 451, I think about a year ago, because I was like, I'm going to read all the classics. I haven't done that. But it was so good. I loved it. Because it's so interesting, his kind of criticism and insight into I don't want to say humanity, but humanity, and especially
Yes,
this.
even though it's sci-fi, it's
Even though
isn't
it's
it? Yeah.
sci-fi, it's absolutely just, it makes you think so much. And then this is basically about a guy who got tattooed, but he got tattooed weirdly, and his tattoos move, and they show these horror stories, and they change, and it's basically a collection of short stories about different sci-fi like plot lines that happen, and one of them there is basically this family, and their entire life is automated through some kind of technology.
Oh, is this about the house that
Yeah, this is
begins
about,
to die?
I mean, I don't know what
Because the
you're.
house
I'm not
catch
sure what you
fire and then
No,
okay, all right, that's another one.
That's a different thing. In this one, oh, is it time gone? Oh,
I'm afraid time ticks away.
Sorry.
It's all right, don't worry.
The children, they have this nursery thing in which they can travel the world in one room, and they keep going back to this image of Africa and these lions that are eating, like just constantly eating. And these parents can hear the screams, but they think nothing of it because they're like, oh, children playing. And then the parents have enough. They're like, we're going to switch off. We're going to go, no technology. We're going to switch off all your shoe ties and toothbrushes and wardrobe dressers. And the children then go, no, please, can we just have one more minute with the nursery? And then the lions kill them. And the parents get eaten, and the children live forevermore in their nursery because they are now horrifically evil. And I love it. And
Perils of technology.
perils of technology,
Or
and
virtual worlds.
Take note,
even.
everyone.
and each one had such a good message, and it was so interesting, and I loved it. Very short, very brief, lovely.
Great.
Bish bash bosh.
Lovely indeed. Thank you, Marianne.
Okay, I'll just stay here.
Okay, Mrs. Rio, do you want to go next?
Sure.
Yeah? All right. So, who else did you want to go? Thank you for coming. And,
Is there anyone who needs to go soon who wanted to talk about?
yeah, does anybody
Yeah.
who needs to go want to talk?
Do you want to talk?
No.
Are you sure? I mean, yeah.
Thank you for having us.
That's a pleasure. Come again, please do.
It's up to you. It's entirely up to you. You don't have to. Remember, it's your call.
I'll talk about the books I read.
If you want to. Okay. So Miss Rio could.
I'll do a little.
Miss Rio, your staff card thing.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take that then.
Did you want to talk?
Okay, obviously over the summer I read You've Reached Sam. Annabelle recommended Heartstopper, so I read that.
I've reread all of them 5 times over the summer. I've watched the second series and I can quote the whole thing word for word.
Kudos.
First and second series.
Well, we've moved on from the other thing then.
The other thing.
Yeah, Heartstopper is a big Litsoc favourite. Yeah, definitely. So that's nice to know.
I was recommended by my neighbour to read The Perks of Being a Wallflower, so I read that. And then
Anybody
I
else read that? Perks of Being a Wallflower?
It's on my to read.
To do
and I also read I read The Fault in Our Stars, and I think I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder at the beginning.
Great. Well, a real sort of mixture of things then. Excellent. Yeah.
Definitely.
And your favourite out of all those? Perhaps you have more than one.
Well, I think maybe The Fault in Our Stars. I'd watched the movie previously, and so I really liked the movie, so that's why I watched read the book afterwards. So maybe that.
With a fabulous quote from Romeo and Juliet.
Is it?
Yeah.
Isn't it Julius Caesar?
Oh, Julius Caesar, sorry.
The fault, dear Brutus.
The Fault Dear Brutus in Our Stars, that's right, yes. With fate, yes.
It's Shakespeare.
It is Shakespeare. Well, I was in the right line.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Julius Caesar, Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
It's more or less the same thing, aren't they? So.
Same year. Anyway, thank you. Brilliant. Oops.
Okay.
Anyone else want to jump in next time?
Yes, thank you very much for your contributions.
Anybody else? Sophia, do you want to jump in, or are you not going to?
Before I do, no, you don't have to.
No.
No, okay, I'll go. Just sort of thing.
See you next week, guys.
Okay, I did read The Appeal. I said I would, and I did.
Yeah,
I
you
really
did.
liked it.
You liked it.
I read it in about 2 days.
Uh-huh.
I find her books have so many characters and so many plot lines. Janice Hallett.
Yeah, if you put it down.
If you
you're
put it
gonna
down, you
like
go, who was that again?
Yeah.
What were they? How were they related to this? So I just kind of had a couple days where it was when it was that really bad weather in the middle of the summer. So that was good. It was a nice, cozy crime. And I didn't read as much as I thought I was going to. I never do, but I'm partway through a couple of books. This is one I was going to read, which is about.
Oh yeah, you said you were going to. Did you? Or are you just
I'm
starting
halfway.
it? Yeah.
It's good so
Yeah.
far. Yeah, it's about the witch trials of Scotland hundreds of years ago and how it connects to modern day sort of runes and things that are left behind and things like that. It's quite cool. And I'm also, I left my copy at home, but this is the second one, Stephanie Garber. It's I can't remember what it's called, something of Broken Hearts. Story of Broken Hearts. It's, I'm not really enjoying it very much. Yeah, it's one of those books where I think it didn't know who it was for. It kind of feels like a mix between adult and YA, and so the tone is a bit off. I think the story is quite good, it's just how writing isn't maybe for me. And I was reading some of the reviews, because I was like, is it just me? Am I missing something that's really good? Is it everyone likes it? And a lot of the people are either 2 stars or like 10 out of 10, so I think it's one of those things that's a bit of a... But it's a good story. It's like a high fantasy fairy tale telling of a woman who the man she's in love with, who she thinks she's going to marry, suddenly turns around and is about to marry her sister. And she has no idea why, and she thinks he's been cursed by the fates, by the family. And so she goes to one of the fates, the King of Hearts, who's quite a popular character, I think, to basically say like, can you retract the curse? But then she gets cursed. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's quite a good storyline if you're interested in like fables and old fairy tales and stuff like that. So I think the storyline is good. Just don't go into it thinking it's either adult or YA. It's kind of an interesting mix. But you were saying about watching stuff as well. I thought in relation to that, it's the 100th anniversary of Disney, and in Richmond Cinema in the Odeon they're re-showing all the original movies.
Oh, are they? Oh, wow.
Yeah, my mum and my sister I think went to see, was it Cinderella or Snow White? But they went to see it, and obviously that was all hand drawn. And they said if you get a chance to go and see some of these old ones in the cinema, do, because you can see all the depth of the
absolutely.
art. So I'm sad I didn't get to do that, but I'm hoping to go see Beauty and the Beast because a lot of that was hand drawn.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I listened to a podcast about the history, about him, which was really interesting. It's still on Radio 4, and just and eventually, of course, the ideal utopia, Epcot, and how it didn't sort of happen. And,
Disneyfication and all that.
yeah, I mean, I've been to Epcot. I mean, it was a real sort of, this is how life could be, but it really is communal living and of a very different feel, which some people have managed, but others just couldn't. No, that's right.
But yeah, I think it's only on September, October, so if you get a chance, I'd recommend going to watch some of them, because they're just something, seeing them the art on the big screen is just so, and that's how it's meant to be watched, because they didn't have TVs when those films were made, they're supposed to be seen on a cinema screen, so if you're
particularly
interested
Snow White, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was an astonishing achievement, given its just drawing.
You forget the fact it was pre-war. It's just absolutely mind-blowing, isn't it? Like that. So old
When you
now.
see the outcome. It took them, how long has it taken to make that?
A
Like
lot.
4 years or something, wasn't it?
Long
Something
time.
crazy like
I
that.
mean, the most extraordinary. It's like a factory of
And
artists.
it's all hand drawn. You can't believe they
Yeah.
did the whole thing by hand, and they did, because obviously now you'd layer it digitally, but then it was layered physically, and then they filmed it. So when you see it like that, you can see all the different. It's really cool.
Yeah. And they went from the mouse on a Steamboat Willie, which is the proto Mickey Mouse, to Snow White in something under 10 years.
That's
and
crazy,
it is astonishing.
But yeah, they look amazing on the big screen.
Let
so-
alone the talkies, because of course
Yeah.
it didn't have, it wasn't silent, it had sound, so even more extraordinary. I mean, he was a real innovator, and so were his artists.
Yeah. So yeah, they're cool to go and watch.
in the cinema. Interesting. Well, thanks. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only saw it in Richmond. I don't know where else they're doing it, but it might be an Odeon thing. I'm not sure. But
Might well be. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Dasha? Ollie? Yeah, come on. I'll just sit straight there. What have you been reading?
been reading quite a few books during the summer. Apart from quite a lot of non-fiction, I've been rereading Orlando, and I think the most interesting book I read during the summer, I discovered an author called Walter Tevis.
Hey.
Yes.
We did a whole
You love Walter Tevis. You did Litsoc on him for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I think he's not like, he's kind of considered Bradbury's counterpart in a way. I actually like him more than Bradbury. So firstly I read The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Oh yes, we
Yeah,
talked about that.
we have.
Yes, yeah.
And then I read Mockingbird as well, which I thought
Yeah.
I was completely fascinated by both of these books. Like, The Man Who Fell to Earth is like about an alien that comes to Earth from a planet that's been completely destroyed by a nuclear war, trying to save the Earth from the same outcome. And he sells these patents for inventions of his planet, and he builds big companies, and he has this idea of bringing more aliens and sort of monopolizing the world and trying to prevent a nuclear war. But in the end, he gets discovered by the FBI, which sort of are pretty harmless because they run weird experiments, think he's just like a freak rather than an alien. But and you think that like towards the end he's probably going to get out and get on with his plan. But right at the very end, they perform an X-ray of his eyes, and because he has like a slightly different structure to normal humans, that completely blinds him.
Oh
And
right. Gosh.
There's like a symbolism in that book as well, because basically it's kind of very similar to, if you think about Don't Look Up, it's got the symbolism of Icarus descending painting, and about like sort of this massive tragedy of somebody that was about to save the world failing and nobody notices really. So they blind him and he sort of gets depressed and decides not to go on with the plan. Although it ends on a hopeful note, we don't actually know what happens next.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Thank you. So you like sci-fi then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thing that really drew me to Walter Tevis is, although it's sci-fi, it doesn't focus so much on like describing fancy rockets. and
It's
stuff
not
like,
hard sci-fi.
Yeah.
That's
Ursula
so
would
hard
argue that
sci-fi.
that's not what sci-fi is about, wouldn't she?
Well, yeah, but then you've
It's
got
about human beings in different situations.
but then you've got your hardcore. I mean,
Yeah,
I
you've got
wouldn't say
your
Ray
hardcore.
Bradbury is necessarily that much of a hardcore, but you've got people like Greg Bear and Ben Bova and Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov. You know, they're the ones who go really into the hard science and the physics, and sometimes it's hard for our poor brains to understand. But yeah, Walter Tevis, I agree. It's more the human side, right? Well, not it's an alien, but it's more the human experience.
I think both his books sort of, they just felt like literature, like
Yes,
they
very
didn't
much
feel
so.
like sci-fi
No,
so much.
No, without.
It's kind of just like with a sci-fi background, but just an exploration of human society.
Yeah. The Day the Earth Stood Still. That's the film where an alien comes to Earth with a great big robot and tries to stop this sort of conflagration. So it was a theme, obviously, when nuclear warfare was such a possible reality. So, and of course Oppenheimer, which is very much about that this summer as well. Okay. Ollie, do you want to?
Thank you, Dasha.
No? Thank you. No? No? Okay, fine. Right. Hannah? Yes,
Sure.
come on then.
Yeah. So my favourite book I read was Demon Copperhead by Barbara
Oh,
Kingsolver.
Kingsolver, right.
So it's a retelling of David Copperfield, but it's set in America, in one of the southern states, I can't remember which one, but in the American South in like the early 2000s. And it's amazing how like transferable the original Dickens story is. I'm ashamed to say I tried reading David Copperfield a couple of years ago and I got about halfway through.
It's a big.
I enjoyed the half I
about
got
it.
through, but I ran out of time.
Yeah.
But I've been meaning to read it again, and of what I read, I remember a lot, and it amazed me how much of it
you can still apply. Like this story about, you know, growing up in poverty but having a good childhood, making meaningful relationships with the people around you despite the hardships, and just the cruelty of the world. Yeah, I love Dickens, I love all the characters, and I think that's something Barbara Kingsolver did really well. Sometimes when you read retellings, it just feels a bit copied, it feels stale, but I think she did a really good job, like bringing all the good things about Dickens, the vibrant characters and the storylines, the humour as well, but like successfully transferring it, making it something new as well, and dealing with like some dark topics like the opioid crisis of the 2000s, poverty, like the care system. I cried so much through, and I have a whole like notes page on my phone with really good quotes from them because the writing was amazing as well.
That's brilliant. She is a good writer, she really is. Yeah.
That's the first one I read by her, but I think I'll have a go at some more.
Yeah, plenty down there if you want to borrow.
Yeah, like
Behaviour. Just behind you.
Like Behaviour is the one I really enjoyed. And it's, it was really, really interesting, but also an eco novel as well, which I loved. So other people like the Lacuna and...
Yeah, I like the Lacuna. You know, that's probably my favourite one.
Yeah.
I've read all of them.
I read a bit of poetry as well. I'm watching Dickinson on Apple TV. I loved it so much.
Oh yeah, I watched a bit of that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Like it was the 7-day free trial, so I was like, I'm just going to watch everything. So that probably wasn't healthy, but I really enjoyed it. So I read a bit of Emily Dickinson. Loved it.
She's very interesting, isn't she? Her style is amazing.
And as a person as well, she's so interesting because I don't know, I always had this perception of her that, you know, she was just staying in her room, but I knew the thing about the romance with her brother's wife, but through the series it got me like a bit more interested in that. And it was so interesting. I did a bit of research and I found it really fascinating to look into that kind of thing.
That's great.
And I love the poetry I read. I really need to read more. I also read Ocean Vuong, some of his work.
Oh yes.
So amazing. He's a second-generation Vietnamese American immigrant. Writes a lot about his own personal experience, but in such a beautiful way. Like another couple of notes pages on my phone, just with quotes.
Just from there.
So amazing. Read some other stuff as well. My Brilliant Friend by Ella Ferrant. I think that's the name. Ella. Obsessive friendships and difficult relationships with people, like and how like when you have really deep long-standing friendships, it's almost like it can be hateful, it can be violent. It reminds me of I don't know if anyone's listened to Olivia Rodrigo's new album yet, but Lacey, which is obviously about Gracie Abrams. I don't know, that song is just
I've been listening to that song on repeat, I do have to say. That and Logical.
So oh yes, and of course, Bad Idea, right?
Oh yes.
I only got this necklace because she was wearing it in the musical. Anyway.
Well, I've only got my necklace because of Georgette Heyer, my fizzing glass, from the Maritime Museum.
Very nice. Also I read Check Out 19, which was really weird. It was like it's one of those books and you can't tell if it's autobiography or not, and it's just a bit strange. But
I have to say, I don't think I've encountered that before.
Quite niche.
Quite niche, yeah.
Yes.
What I really liked about it was the way she opened it. She started talking really intensely about the experience of reading and telling a bit. Unfortunately, I listened to this, so I didn't get that experience. But like, on and on about how like when you get to the bottom of the page and you turn over, but it was like written in first person plural and it was really freaky. And then she switches over to all the books she's been reading and how they've impacted her. But like it's like frame narrative, but it's like 5 frame narratives, and it like switches like so it's like. But it was really well written, and it's given me a list of about 100 books I need to read now because she describes them so well. I love literature and people talk about books they've read. I just think obviously they paint it as much better than it actually is, but I think I love Litsoc because I love hearing what other people read because it's always more enjoyable, especially when someone's passionate about it. Anyway.
Thanks for the Litsoc plug at the end there.
That's lovely, Hannah, and we're very pleased that you're back with us.
Absolutely.
Year 12, it's lovely, really lovely. So, okay, well I'll finish off. If that's right.
Yeah.
We're just about
the time
an
I think
hour.
is better, just short of an hour, I think. So.
Yeah. I did a lot of comfort reading as usual because you know that's what you do when you're relaxing and you've come out of a very busy term and when it was busy again.
So I, because PD James has been on Channel 5, I've sort of rediscovered her, and I read quite a few of her detective novels, but also I came back to this because I was sorting out books, and I thought, well, am I going to get rid of PD James's Death Comes to Pemberley, or am I going to keep it? And I thought, oh, well, I'll read it. And basically, we talked about fan fiction a lot, haven't we, at Litsoc? And this is PD James's fan fiction of a sequel to Pride and Prejudice, and it is also a murder mystery. It's well written. There's a good sense of Elizabeth and Darcy and their life after their marriage and what's happened to everybody. It's 1803. They've been married for 6 years, and it's also been filmed with Matthew Rhys and I can't remember her name, and quite well. Some elements are more emphasised than others. So, for example, in the film, the series, Darcy and Elizabeth stop sort of communicating properly, and then they come back together at the end, which is sort of more of a hint towards Pride and Prejudice. This less so, but it's beautifully written, and it continues Wickham and Lydia, and eventually Wickham and Lydia are banished to the New World. Well, not banished, but they go off to make a new life. And but it's well done, and you get the real feel of an estate and the law system, because she's very good on that, of very early 19th century, and the pressures that everybody was under to make the estate pay, and also for if you're not in the army, you're not a lawyer, you're not a clergyman, what are you going to do with your life if you're at the upper classes, and also Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Bennet and their continual sort of marital problems. So I do recommend it. I haven't quite decided whether I'm keeping it or not. This is the library copy.
Yeah.
So and we went to see it, didn't we? And she talked about, this is
British Library.
long time ago now, when she talked about crime genre and her work in the Home Office and why she decided to come to Jane Austen. So yeah, it's almost her last text. So that was one of the things. But it was for me it was a summer of finding new authors. And this has been a really good year for me of finding new female authors and books that I want to pass on. Amongst them, Sarah Winman, and actually this person I've come across before, who's been writing for a while, but I had never come across, called Diane Setterfield.
I'm a big fan of Diane
Hey.
Now, I can't remember how I came across this now, but it's. This is her novel called Once Upon a River. I kept calling it One More River, which actually I think is a better title, because so much about crossing rivers and the Rubicon and, the between death and life is part of this. But anyway, no matter, she called it Once Upon a River, so I must go with that. It's set in the Thames, and it moves between the source of the Thames, which you might know is in Gloucestershire, and Oxford, and the countryside between, and there's lovely, amazing characters, families, unusual families. There's a certain amount of supernatural. It's quite gothic, but not as gothic as our other read, which I'll talk about in a minute, and I just loved it. It starts in an ancient pub. There is this wonderful cast of characters, fabulously strong women, a very interesting publican, and a sort of legend, and this child who emerges from the river seems to be dead, in a coma, not sure. The local midwife or woman who helps out with birth manages to bring her back from the dead, and then it's a question of, well, whose child is she? Where is her place? And gradually it unfolds, and I just loved it. Have you read this?
It's from a few years old, isn't it?
Yes, a few years
read
old.
It, but yeah. It is good though. I do
I
like
can't remember when it was written. 2013 maybe.
10 years
I
ago.
read it a little while ago. I think.
2018. Yeah. I don't know. I've missed it, but anyway. So really enjoyed really, really enjoyed it. 3 families, are keen to claim her. And Goodreads calls it a glorious tapestry, which is exactly what it is. It is like a tapestry. There's an underside and there's an upper side, and it's different stitches and different weave of the storytelling. And it's one of those books that I just want everybody to read. Her other one is The 13th Tale, which is much more gothic, and is actually being filmed and is on Prime.
It's quite a good adaptation, isn't it? I watched it this summer. I watched that recently.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I'm going to watch it when it gets dark, really dark.
Good.
Halloween, that sort of thing. Anyway, it's got Vanessa Redgrave in it, fabulous, amazing, Dame Vanessa Redgrave, I should say, and Olivia Colman. And
kind of big fame, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's a stellar cast.
Yeah.
And very interesting because the protagonist is called to talk to this writer. This writer has told various different stories about her history. Nobody knows the truth, and this woman, played by Olivia Colman, she's very sort of down to earth, and she's only really interested in the truth. She writes she ghosts write, but she also writes biographies. And her father runs a bookshop. Her mother is a very shadowy character, clearly not well, and there are twins in this, so you can see the gothic tropes. I didn't like it as much, but I did stay with it, and there's a house which faces the wrong way. There's a story to this house, a story to twins, good, evil. There's an extraordinary character who's absolutely huge. I mean, a real giant. How did they play that? How did they play him?
Who do you mean?
Well, he's supposed in the book. He's huge. He's over 6'3", I reckon. You remember?
I don't think that's in the film.
Okay, all right.
Because that was another book I read a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
But I watched the film recently, so now the film is more
there
in my head.
Yeah.
Is he the gardener?
Yes, he's the son of the gardener.
Yeah, he's not the same. He's different in that.
Oh, right, okay. It's quite complicated, I think.
There's a lot of
probably one decision, so there's lots of gutting. Anyway, it was, and there are wills, and you can imagine, and there's a cat, I seem to remember as well. Yes, and it's all resolved happily, but the reason that the writer is trying to tell her story now is because she's under sentence of death. She's got terminal illness, and it's and also there's a link because the writer actually lives in Yorkshire, although the place she'd originally lived in was in Oxfordshire. There's a link to the secret garden as well, which is sort of quite interesting. So those were sort of my discoveries, and because I was around and about Oxford, I really enjoyed reading it. And the other author I read was somebody called S.G. MacLean, and she's Scottish, and she wrote the first book I read, The Bookseller of Inverness, which is set in the starts in the middle of the 18th century, the 1745 rebellion, with Bonnie Prince Charlie coming from Europe to try and raise the clans and take over from the Hanoverians. And of course he gets as far as Preston, and everybody in London is packing up and panicking, but they stop there and then all go back. So it's about the 1745 rebellion and what happened afterwards through the prism of a very strange mystery, and people are dying and being murdered, and it's all about betrayal and clans and loyalty and what have you, and families. And then I found that she also had written a civil war series with a chap called Damien Seeker, and this amazing story, which I can't now remember its name, but where Prince Rupert gets involved, and the Rhine, the Cavalier, Night Marianne, and the protagonist seems to die, but then maybe doesn't. So there are that was a big series, and also to continue my Civil War theme, my book club is reading next, we're talking about it next week, is Act of Oblivion by Robert Harris, which Mr. Humphreys and I were going to go to a talk by Robert Harris last year, but it was the day the Queen died, Queen Elizabeth died, and so we couldn't go, and it was never reproduced, sadly. But I've read it again and really enjoyed it. It does get a bit longer. It's about the chase and the hunt for the regicides, the people who signed the death warrant of Charles I. Once they caught up with them, they died horribly, but two of them did get away in America. So it talks about America, the difference between America and Britain, even America in its very early stages, and a lot of what's going on in the early stages, the difference between the differences between the Native Americans and the settlers, and also the Puritans, strict Christians, and those who are less so, who are much more royalist. And of course the splits still exist. Not that anybody wants to go back to being royalist Britain anymore, but nonetheless we've got this element that
the Republicans.
Yeah, the Republicans versus the Democrats. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it is set in near, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and also we see how James, who was to be the Duke of York, decides that he's going to annex New Amsterdam, which then becomes New York because he was the Duke of York. It happened without a shot being fired because Peter Stuyvesant was very sensible and just said, okay, all right, you've arrived, you've got 3 battle cruisers, ships as they were, what's the point of killing all our citizens? So there we are. Although Stuyvesant became another name to conjure with in America. So a sort of mixed bag this year. Lots of Georgia Hare also, Agatha Christie, and did I read any Ursula Le Guin? Not sure I did, but I certainly bought a new book of essays and then discovered that it was just a new cover, but never mind. Always good to have.
I'm trying to keep up with how many books you
Anyway,
read there.
there
That's like about 40 books I think I've only read.
And other things I've forgotten.
Of course.
I forgot to bring my list with me. So there we are.
And she gave us a nice history lesson as well. Now you know how New York came to be called New York as well, which you might not have known before.
Of course, the best thing about New York is Golden Hill, isn't it?
Oh yes, Francis Bufford. Yeah.
Francis Bufford. Have you read that, Josie?
It's really good.
Really good.
Fantastic.
Really worth seeking out, you two.
Very
because
atmospheric.
It's very atmospheric about New York in the 18th century.
18th century, sorry. Yes.
18th century, yeah.
Pre-revolution, I believe.
What's it called?
Golden Hill. It's over there, Francis Bufford.
Francis
and
Bufford.
It is the best, I think someone described it as the best 20th century, 18th century novel, as in it perfectly reads like, Samuel Richardson, or an author from then, but it was written in the 21st century.
Yeah.
It's also got a really good twist.
It's fabulous
An
twist.
amazing twist. One of the best twists I've come across.
Really didn't guess it. Just didn't guess it at all.
It was so good, so really highly recommended.
Yeah, highly recommended. So lots of different things then.
Yes, indeed.
And I did actually buy Patterson Joseph's book, Ignatius Sancho.
See, 6 Degrees of Separation in Litsoc.
But haven't yet read it, and also another couple of different, actually I know I did read a book by a Nigerian children's author, which I really enjoyed. A bit like Refugee Boy, but from the Nigerian perspective.
Okay.
Which I really enjoyed that. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Great. So what a good start to the year. Okay, 5:30. Sophia, are you alright getting home?
Yeah, just remember, if you need to go, don't be polite, just go.
Alright. So next week it's Virago and Persephone books, and we'll be looking at their different publishing histories, because Virago came first, it's their anniversary, 50 years, and Persephone is 25 years old next year, and they're having a big festival, and we'll be looking at the things they've published and recommending those as well. So we'll probably do between the three of us about that. Okay, so thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.